President Aristide, thank you very much for having us today. People in Haiti and abroad keep asking the same question, and people want to know, when do you intend to go back to Haiti? It's been 6 years now. I mean, what prevents you from going back?
I think that I see the picture. The picture is that in Haiti, we have the same people who organized the invasion of 2004 after kidnapping me to put me in Africa. And they are still there. 8,900 soldiers or so, plus 4,400 police officers, more or less, spending 51 million US dollars a month in a country where 70% of the population have less than $1 a day to live. That means it's a paradise for them. Once we had the colonization of Haiti, now we have a kind of neo-colonial occupation. So they don't want me to be back, from my point of view, because they still want to occupy Haiti.
Hello, guys. Welcome to the 1804. Today, we'll be looking at a few things, mainly the explanation of Laurent Lamothe on Canada's sanctions. As of now, he's planning to take them to federal court over the sanctions put against him. We'll also look at the NED. What is the NED and exactly what they're funding? And I'll refer you to a very good article on Haiti Liberté, written by Travis Ross. I highly recommend it. And then we'll also look at the situation in Peru, and also look at the recent coup and the implications of that, as well as the ongoing protest. So obviously, who is Laurent Lamothe? Well, he's a former prime minister under the PHTK party. Essentially, that was PHTK party, which Martelly was president. He was serving as prime minister. Same party that had the full support of the U.S. Government, was propped up by the U.S. government as well. So we'll take a look here. This is a radio interview. I recommend it as well. A full radio interview, about an hour and 40 minutes. But I want to take you to his explanations on the sanctions, and then we'll take a look at that. And keep in mind, this is the host of the show is Edozeni, Radio 99.1. Allo Sénateur, that's the name of his show. He's the former senator of Haiti too. It's the same guy I'm mentioning. He is which I didn't know before too, but how do you say that? I had issues saying that the last episode as well. Son beau-père en français, which is his brother-in-law. Jesus, yeah. His brother-in-law is Joël Kali, another prominent Haitian businessman based in Jacmel. So we'll take a look here. I believe it started at 44 minutes, yeah.
On a fait la guerre. On allait dans le bail que nous devons parler, on a pas dans sanction, parce que c'est pour ça vraiment que des mando pour nous être capable de parler dans l'émission Allo Sénateur, que nous avons essayé samedi, nous pas capable, au lieu que mal samedi, cap 31 décembre, et puis qui va peut-être malgré nous pour compte nous là, ouais, j'ai internet là saccagé nous. Donc sanction, on allait pour ça, mais même pour ça, ils mettent non et pour ça que yo accusé et c'est accusé là et on connaît qu'on prend au tribunal qui est important.
He's essentially asking, for those who don't speak Creole, the host Edozeni is asking former Prime Minister Laurent Lamothe why they sanctioned him.
Pour moi, mais même Edozeni, je pense qu'il est très important que nous commencions à nous dimension ça. Si nous pas coupables, si nous pas gain des dossiers contre nous et le moral dans le tribunal, ça te fait un plaisir parce que quand pile n'est capable parler dans la radio, qui parlait, qui jouerait, qui dit pas de droit, mais il parle au tribunal. Donc, moi, au même aller, ça veut dire ou une conviction que je ne vais pas jouer nous rien.
Premièrement, je pense que Canada, s'il a cherché moun qui nan gang, moun qui finance gang, moun kap bay problème instabilité, moun kap tuer moun kap kidnapper moun kap assassiner kap assassiner leader politique, kap assassiner citoyen, c'est certainement pas Laurent Lamothe qui t'a gagné dans un disque comme ça. Parce que Laurent Lamothe, moi fait tout mandat comme premier ministre, m'a traqué, m'a goumé contre gang. M'a crasé gang. M'a gen gang qui zanmim.
So he's claiming he doesn't have any affiliations with gangs.
D'ailleurs, m'crois que un pile nan gang ça rabopé.
But let's be real though, even if he did, why would he come admit this on a radio show? So keep that in mind as well.
Et là, 3 caladans t'es dans prison. L'homme de là. Parce que nous pas toléré, nous te gagné une politique, une tolérance zéro pour gang. C'est pour ça que nous t'écrasé gang Clifford Brandt. C'est pour ça que nous t'écrasé gang son la famille. C'est pour ça que pays a été soi. C'est pour ça que mon sud-est pas de problème. Nous songe les dans les côtes de fait, songe les dans Jacques Mel la monter descendre 2 3 4 heures du matin à prendre sur route, pas de aucun problème. Donc Canada, le Canada fait ça, Canada sont premièrement moi-même pour moi-même yo induit et regarde ministre affaires étrangères et puis premier ministre là en erreur parce que yo gen on ti noir yo de on eldu qui bon côté yo cap ba yo information. Moi-même pense que yo font plongaye. Yo besoin retirer une série de monde. OK, yo besoin retirer soit une série de monde soit mémoire une série de monde sous scène politique là et puis yo font plongaye puis tout le monde net. Mais le Canada, sénateur Edo, qui est un pays quand même d'état de droit, c'est le porte-étendard des droits humains, n'est-ce pas? Comment on fait accuser un monde, pas même accuser, ou condamner un monde, et ou pas même faire enquête, ou pas même présenter.
So he's asking how come Canada's sanctioning him and he's claiming they haven't conducted an investigation.
Ou y a zéro preuve.
And they have zero proof at the moment.
Ou gen zéro évidence.
Zero proof, zero evidence.
Ou gen zéro rapport qui t'a
no reports.
Et puis, carrément, comme ça, ou était le premier ministre canadien, OK, monté, font conférence de presse dans le sommet de la francophonie avec 54 pays. Et puis, il a annoncé le bras mettre sanctions sur ancien président et ancien premier ministre et puis même dans deux a. Mais c'est de la folie. Yo dépassé les limites. Et puis toutes ces maniguettes. Et puis l'on regarde ouais ambassadeur Canada ici la fait promotion, il vient pratiquement directeur presse on l'autre ancien candidat ou futur candidat que pas un problème avec candidat ça. D'ailleurs, c'est pas même de candidats, on a parlé de action diplomate étranger qui n'ont un pays. Est-ce que c'est Wally pour l'avouer, Wall, directeur presse, ou ancien candidat, mais un futur candidat? Et puis pendant ce temps, même ambassade, ça, c'est une cap sanctionner au sein de l'autre monde. Donc, nous-mêmes, nous relans sénateur Edo, nous relans nous pas d'accord. OK? Et nous prenons un cabinet d'avocats qui est le cabinet Lavry, qui c'est un très gros firme cabinet, OK, au Canada. Et cabinet ça, il porte plainte à la Cour fédérale du Canada.
So he's denying any implications with gang involvement based on the sanctions that Canada gave him. At the same time, though, his name was not the only name sanctions, not at the same time, but we saw Fourcan sanctions, Celestin sanctions, where there's almost concrete proof that there at least were corrupt in a sense, like the money received and drug running as well, especially for Furcan, who was facilitating, which was found by based on the U.S. sanctions, that he was facilitating drugs coming from Colombia to Haiti, and then from Haiti to the United States and other smaller Caribbean nations as well. So now, if he's saying that they have no proof, or they can't sanction him based on proof or anything, I personally don't think, whether or not it's for political play, I don't think Canada is just sanctioning him based on zero proof. Whether it's a lot, whether he was implicated in a lot of things that were deemed corrupt or bad, or whether it was a lot or literally one thing, or maybe he was in one specific thing, I personally don't believe Canada's sanctioning him based off zero proof. So to the point where I think if they have to go to federal court, I think Canada would have something to show as well. And to his point too, earlier he had made, because I'll show you the video, because he was also accused of buying 200 ARs from Israel to Haiti. Yet there was no mention of that during his time in office. There was no mention of that in the budget for the police, nor the budget for the whole year for Haiti. He goes on to defend him. My only thing I want to say is that there's other prime ministers that came obviously after him, right? Now that even reinforced the sense that he got sanctioned specifically was the fact that it's 2022 and they went back to your to sanction you, and you haven't served in 2014. To me, that's actually telling more than anything, because I know it's one thing to say you're doing something for political play. To me, it would have been more obvious if for political play if it was someone that they had sanctioned that had served more recently itself. For them to go back to you, to Laurent Lamothe, and sanction him while he was a PM in 2012, 2014 tells me they've got something on him, or some type of evidence showing some type of corrupt activity he had done during that time. And even for earlier in the interview, he addresses the 200 ARs and said that was for, since he had like he mentioned here earlier, since he had a zero tolerance for gangs, that was also to reinforce the police, which is true, which could be true, because they actually do hold ARs, although the constitution, the law says in Haiti that only the police actually technically can't even hold ARs. Only the army can have assault rifles, but that's another discussion. But he had time to address the 200 ARs for a long time now, because he was prosecuted way earlier than what the sanctions that were handed down to him in November. And I'll play a video here. This is from a prosecutor down in Haiti explaining the situation of the 200 ARs.
Député Arateli Salim Soukar ta acheté dans pays Israël dans mois de mars année passée. D'après représentant circonscription Delma Taba, zam yo ta passé dans pays Canada pour arriver en Haïti. Parlementaire opposition a déclaré li bay collègue li yo assez information pour y mener enquête là pour yo connaît qui côté gouvernement Martelly Lamotte là joindre l'agence ça qui te permettre li acheter toute quantité galil sa yo qui ces âmes la guerre. Pas gen yon rubrique dans budget a qui te prévoit une opération comme ça selon député Arnel Belizer qui t'a parlé dans une rencontre avec la presse et dit Jackson Alexis ak Colin Hildorest te assisté.
Raison fait pas j'aime parler de dossier Zamio, c'est parce que nous soumettons déjà par le Parlement haïtien officiellement, transmettre par ancien président Jean-Tolbert Alexis, le président Dera Simon Dieu seul, et Zamim Newton Saint-Just qui gon bataille que l'a mené contre moun qui dans sac passe à eux. Moi ba le dossier supplémentaire pour montrer que moun yo dans sac passe.
Dossier Zam qui ça député.
Zam que Laurent Lamothe acheté avec monsieur Salim Soukar 200 galil. Mais yo là.
Pour faire qui ça?
Kounya là, c'est président de l'Assemblée nationale là nous va poser question parce que me soumettre li bali pour monter une commission spéciale bicamérale parce que ça lui fait raison de sécurité d'État.
Gali nous dit Haïti va gagner l'armée.
Mais tout ça là, 200. De 1 à 200. Li là.
C'est dans qui pays parce que gagne pas pour ça.
Yo sorti en Israël, passé par Canada pour yo arriver en Haïti. Ça c'est bonne commande là que comme camarade a dit monter côté m'dal en Israël là. Et s'il demande patron, la connaît que patron connaît que m'dal en Israël.
Camarade.
Un individu qui a parlé d'un ancien député, il pas parlé de moi parce que nous sommes députés actifs. C'est que nous qu'à comprendre. Et Moundel Maktaba fier de moi.
Avion privé côté ou bien bateau, ça côté.
Mais c'est ça m'a dit yo. Et dans Amérijet yo passé. M'a dit citoyen ça. Quel que soit pouvoir Matéli Lamothe gagné, yo pas qu'à éliminer dossier dans Amérijet parce que Amérijet pas une compagnie haïtienne. L'enregistrer net parce que c'est tout système dans le même bagage. Dans n'importe l'autre pays où aller, de vous pas à numéro.
So, and another important point to raise that prosecutor didn't raise, deputy didn't raise is in terms of shipping for guns, like why did it have to go through Canada and then to Haiti? Because in proximity, it would have been quicker just to ship it down to Haiti directly. And if it had to stop through a country first, there's other countries closer in proximity to Haiti than Canada. So that's always a question I've had in my mind. But again, he's fully denied it completely. We'll see if it upholds in federal court. And something we'll take a look at as well. Another point I want to mention, he just mentioned his time under the Martelly presidency. I just want to show you something here. I'll play it at 55.
Ma voix question ça pour même qu'on est déjà parce que faut entendre des questions c'est PM qui a démissionné mais c'est à toi de répondre PM.
Bon, m'te démissionné sous demande Matéli.
Donc si c'est pour votre démissionner.
Pardon?
They're asking him the question from the Facebook chat or that Eduzini's the coordinating, that asked him why he demissioned before his term, because his term, he actually ended before his full term ended, not for that long, but he left on his own terms. And he's asking why, if he demissioned himself or was it Martelly that pressured him to leave his position as PM.
Si c'est pour, t'as continué.
Non, écoute, regardez, moi-même, moi devine faire un job. Job Premier ministre, c'est pas un job éternel que lié, c'est un job, si vous regardez bien son moyen, en Premier ministre arrêté en 6 mois et 1 an. C'est le bagage. OK? Pour nous sommes monde là, commence son bagage, moi finir. Donc t'es une série de projets de commencer. M'te besoin finir, mais bon, ou ap travailler pour président. OK? Président mando pour aller l'école. À l'école. C'est lui connaît, c'est-à-dire que c'est lui connaît ça t'a plus bon pour l'IA. OK? Et c'est lui que me fait pratiquement. Donc m'ba un style de monde que m'ba aller dans la radio pour me dire mais comment démarrer ceci cela non m'ba moi te juger que me devine font travail. D'ailleurs me quitter travail moi. OK pour me devine rendre un service, pour me devine aider dans un projet que moi-même moi te pensé qui est un projet que me découvre là-dedans, OK qui devine aider pays là. Parce que moi, pas besoin, m'te un job, moi, m'te une compagnie qui t'a fonctionné très bien. Obligé quitter toute bagaille pour me venir aider Michel Martelly, OK, parce que à l'époque, moi, t'ai quoi que c'est que le développer font bagaille pour pays. Donc
Yeah, he claimed that at the time, he claimed that he believed Michel Martelly wanted to do good for the country, but that's hard to believe considering PHTK was propped up by the U.S. government, and even with sketchy elections as well.
donc c'est ça, donc c'est ça que l'idée.
Si me des journalistes nous pose une question mais où dit te voulait faire et où te voulait le faire. Donc il devine gâté, il devine gros problème.
Non, relation non, écoute, c'est même avec PHTK par exemple. OK, un peu mon a dit que OK, mon PHTK etc. ceci cela. Bon, écoute. C'est parce que mon yo soit yo pas prendre nouvelle ou quoi que ce soit parce que moi pas pratiquement moi-même m'était oui.
So yeah, I recommend you watching the rest of the interview. It's a good one, but mainly the main key points I was looking for was the sanctions. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure though that if my personal belief is whether it's a big implication or small, I'm sure he was involved or in something, considering the fact he never addressed the 200 ARs other than this interview, which you guys can go back. I believe it's at the 19-minute mark timestamp. He briefly mentions them, and it's basically his explanation was to address the Haitian National Police. NED didn't ask him in the sense that why did it have to ship from Canada to Israel, which I believe, from Israel to Canada and then from Canada to Haiti. He did not ask him that question, nor did Laurent Lamothe address. But I believe it's definitely a valid question to ask. Because it could be a simple answer saying like, oh, it had to go through has to go through a certain route before going down to the Caribbean. But at the same time, by not addressing that, it just leaves more room for speculation as to why it was then in terms of the use of the ARs and why it had to go through one country up north, North America, before heading down south. So. Another thing I want to take a look at is just the tweet. This is January 1st tweet from de facto Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Basically, I'll read the tweet here in French. Je souhaite à toutes les familles qui, depuis plusieurs mois, ont dû quitter leur maison pour cause d'insécurité. J'espère vivement que cette année, ils puissent réintégrer leurs demeures respectives. In English, I wish all the families who for several months have had to leave their homes due to insecurity. I sincerely hope that this year they will be able to return to their respective homes. Like, dude's acting like some of these homes weren't burnt down. Like, where are they gonna... I'm not trying to laugh at this situation. It's like, this tweet found it funny because, like, where are they gonna go? And you're the prime minister who holds... Although you're de facto prime minister, you technically do hold power. You're the head of state. And there's literally been nothing done to even mitigate the insecurity. Like nothing done. Other than obviously police every day, which has been going on before his presidency, but police operations trying to dissolve gangs. J'ai une pensée spéciale pour celles-ci qui ne sont pas libres de leur déplacement et qui n'auront pas l'occasion de passer les fêtes avec leur famille. In English, I have a special thought for those who are not free to travel and who will not have the opportunity to spend the holidays with their families. So we'll see how that goes. In terms of, he's scheduled to stay in power. He's supposed to stay in power till at least 2024. Well, at least for this year, 2023. He might leave early 2024, depending when there's elections. Now, this government has no popularity with Haiti. In terms of the insecurity down there, will it get better? Well, no action. There has been no actions from the government necessarily to mitigate it, other than the operations by the Haitian National Police. So we'll see how that goes on that end. Now, one thing I want to focus on is the NED. The National Endowment for Democracy. Essentially, one of the wording is supporting freedom around the world. So, what is the NED? Let's see here. The National Endowment for Democracy, NED, is an independent nonprofit foundation dedicated to the growth and strengthening of democratic institutions around the world. Each year, NED makes more than 2,000 grants to support the projects of non-governmental groups abroad who are working for democratic goals in more than 100 countries. Since its founding in 1983, the endowment has remained on the leading edge of democratic struggles everywhere, while evolving into a multifaceted institution that is a hub of activity, resources, and intellectual exchange for activists, practitioners, and scholars of democracy the world over. So essentially, the NED supports democracy through funding. They try to help, they fund human rights groups, outlets, etc. Now, they essentially are for democracy and for peace. So from its beginning, NED has remained steadfast, bipartisan, created jointly by Republicans and Democrats, NED is governed by a board of balance between both parties, enjoys congressional support across the political spectrum. NED operates with high degree of transparency and accountability, reflecting on our founders' belief for democracy promotion overseas should be conducted openly. So that's on their website here. What I want to show you too is because oftentimes, so this is an article I recommend you to go read. I won't go through all of it. It's an old article posted by Travis Ross, how the NED has sabotaged Haitian democracy and sovereignty. And a lot of it is mainly through its funding and influence as well. So I'll read you a part here and then I'll get to my point. The NED was founded in 1983. The NED's co-founder, Alan Weinstein, was described by the Washington Post as the sugar daddy of overt operations. According to its website, the NED is dedicated to fostering the growth of a wide range of democratic institutions abroad, including political parties, business organizations, human rights organizations, and independent media. Weinstein was more honest in describing the NED's purpose while speaking to the Washington Post reporter. A lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA, he explained. And when we're talking about covert operations, I want to keep in mind, like, it's like in terms of, like, let's say from a military perspective or boots on the ground perspective. Like, for example, if the U.S. wanted to oust a president from another country, a non-covert operation would just taking their military, going boots on the ground, going to the parliament or whatever the president resides, taking him by force, and then bring him wherever he needs to go, wherever they take him, right? It's not covert, it's out in the open. You saw what the military did. More covert operation, it came around the time JFK became president, and usually also around the Cuban Missile Crisis, where a lot of the U.S. protected their interests through covert operations, mainly with the use of the CIA. So either by influence, by using CIA spies, funding, using, for example, citizens of different countries, paying them to influence or to prop up paramilitary groups. That would be the explanation of a covert operation itself. Like, for example, I want to say the operation of the Bay of Pigs in Cuba was covert, although a lot of casualties died. But that would be one of the examples of a covert operation. So, in The Rogue State, author William Blum points out that while the NED was supposedly set up to support democratic institutions throughout the world through private non-governmental efforts, the U.S. Congress provides nearly all of its funding. Blum argues that while the NED claims to promote democracy abroad, it actually promotes U.S. foreign policy, often at the expense of democracy. The NED finances, nurtures, and supplies right-wing political groups, civic organizations, labor unions, student groups, book publishers, and independent media to further U.S. interest abroad. So, these NED-funded organizations seek to destabilize left-wing government whose policies oppose U.S. interest or prevent left-wing movement from successfully achieving power in the first place. One cannot assume that a recipient of NED funding is somehow beholden to or ideologically committed to U.S. foreign policy. One can assume, however, that the goals and methods of organizations and individuals the NED funds do not oppose that of the U.S. foreign policy. The U.S. government does not provide funding to individuals or organizations who oppose U.S. interest. So keep in mind, the U.S. government does not provide funding to individuals or organizations who oppose U.S. interest. So just to give the NED's funding history in the 2004 coup, the NED funded civil society groups to undermine President Jean-Bertrand Aristide in the years leading up to the 2004 coup d'etat that removed him and hundreds of others from elected office. Aristide won an overwhelming majority of 90% of the votes, blah, 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 blah. It was then that the NED began, I was going to skip over this, but it's actually an important part. Aristide won an overwhelming majority of the 92% of the votes in the 2000 presidential elections. His party, La Valence, also won 80% of the seats in the House of Deputies. It was then that the NED began funding opposition groups inside Haiti. So you can see the influence. So the NED, although it's there to promote democracy, essentially is turned into a sphere of influence to provide money to human rights groups, media outlets in certain countries, then again to promote U.S. interest and hegemony. So who is the NED currently funding in Haiti? And we'll get to that. But you can see on their website, too, which was then again brought up to me by Travis Ross. All, at least in Haiti for 2021, all the organizations they're funding and the amount, for example, $775K for building union capacity to democratically represent workers, $450K to strengthening collaboration between Haitian youth and community leaders. Even this media outlet, Aibo Post, $120K raising awareness about human rights violations. But then again, if you look at Aibo Post, really, and it's not something I've taken, I don't really consume their news that much. But if you look at the trend and the stuff that they're posting, a lot of the touchy subjects seem to be opinion pieces. So anything related to U.S. foreign policy, the history, and as well as the Jovenel investigation, whereas most of their published articles are just basic, and not to say basic, they're of interest, but they have nothing really to do of current affairs that are going on in the country as well, and not alluding to that's what's going on. But if they're receiving funding, if Haitian outlet like Aibo Post is receiving funding from the NED, who has headquartered in Washington, who also has U.S. interest, you can't really expect a outlet like this to have any unbiased reporting on actual things that are going on revolving Haiti or even U.S. foreign policy as well. Like, for example, we know, obviously, there's like a mini Cold War going on with China between the United States, a proxy war, you could even say a little proxy war between the United States and Russia through Ukraine, although that's another fight. That's a discussion for another day. I can't imagine like Aibo Post wouldn't be able to make an article saying, oh, why help from China would be good for Haiti, or why help from Russia would be good for Haiti. I doubt that would ever be posted on this type of outlet, obviously, considering the fact that the NED holds the U.S. interest at heart. $65K for Observatoire Citoyen de l'Action des Pouvoirs Publics et des ONG. Another $40K for Bureau des Droits Humains en Haïti. You got $65K for Réseau National de Défense des Droits Humains. So a lot of money getting, Initiative de la Société Civile. So a lot of money getting thrown at human rights groups in Haiti and few media outlets. So there are, who is the NED currently funding in Haiti? There are several local civil society groups and human rights organizations directly funded by the NED in Haiti right now. Haiti-based human rights organizations, the RNDDH, Réseau National de Défense des Droits Humains, Défenseurs Plus, Initiative de la Société Civile, and OCAP, Observatoire Citoyen de l'Action des Pouvoirs Publics et des ONG, are all funded by the NED. And keep in mind, the RNDDH, that was one of the few first organizations that actually published a report on the La Saline massacre that essentially framed Jimmy Cherizier for that massacre, and that was picked up by the rest of the mainstream media, which now made him become the face of, when we're talking about gang issues or mainly gang issues in Haiti. He's the face of all those issues, yet it's based on this report that just funded by the NED that kind of framed him for taking part of a massacre that did not happen. So the RNDDH and its director, Pierre Espérance, and this is the same person that till date he's still the director of the RNDDH, and he was responsible for putting that the report, one of the reports that essentially framed or blamed Jimmy Cherizier for the 2018 La Saline massacre. So the RNDDH and its director Pierre Espérance were instrumental in the propaganda campaign that framed Aristide as a dictator, despite having won 92% of the popular vote in 2000. In addition, the RNDDH manufactured reports that framed Lavalas, Prime Minister Yvon Neptune as having led an alleged massacre in La Syrie, near the town of Saint-Marc in Haiti. Espérance and the RNDDH worked closely with La Tortue dictatorship to target and jail thousands of Lavalas supporters. For those of you who don't know, Lavalas was the political party of Jean-Bertrand Aristide before and after the 2004 coup. The NCHR Haiti, the National Coalition of Human Rights, the RNDDH's former name, had an agreement with the head prosecutor in Port-au-Prince, by which any individual accused by Espérance and NCHR Haiti would be subject to prosecution. So again, if you were accused by the NCR Haiti or Pierre Espérance, they would be essentially subject to prosecution. So according to a Council of Hemispheric Affairs report, countless individuals, many of whose only crime was a loose affiliation with Aristide's family's Lavalas party, were arrested by the interim government based on false accusations entered by the NCHR Haiti. So then again, same organization funded by the NED that's supposed to promote democracy, yet is undermining democracy from a democratically elected president who had 92% of the votes, and has probably still till this day the most popular president in the country's history. And this is just based on a 22. There was a conference in July 2022, and I'll read up on it, and then I'll let you guys catch up on the rest. It's a very good article. I highly recommend it. It's called, I'll get you the link again, How the NED Has Sabotaged Haitian Democracy and Sovereignty. Okay. So in July 2022, the NED hosted a conference where speakers shared their opinions on the crisis facing Haiti. The speakers included Guy-Serge Pompilus and Pierre-Antoine Louis of OCAP, Carl Alexandre, Minutsa's former number 2, Fabiola Cordova, and the NED's Associate Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, and Charles Clément, the co-founder of Carrefour l'Espoir, Crossroads of Hope, translated in English. Like OCAP, Carrefour l'Espoir is a partner of the NED according to the moderator's introductory remarks. Fabio Cordova had direct role in funding numerous anti-Lavalas opposition affiliated groups like the Group of 184 and the CD. So this guy who had direct responsible in funding to undermine the administration of Aristide is now being invited to in an NED conference to try and see how they can rebuild Haiti with peace and democracy. So that's crazy. The manifesto itself is vague and offers no concrete strategies or solutions. Classic. It does, however, point to two orientations it promotes for Haiti: Carrefour l'Espoir and the American Global Fragility Act, which you'll see down there. But once that you'll see in the article, it explains the Global Fragility Act way better. But essentially, Biden had said when this came out, Haiti would be one of the first partners for the Global Fragility Act. And let's see if it'll give you an explanation here. And what is it exactly? Well, the GFA was signed into law on December 20th, 2019 by President Donald Trump with the full bipartisan support. It is endorsed by the Biden administration as a means to advance America's national interest on the world stage. At the dawn of this decisive decade, the Biden administration hopes the GFA will establish the United States as a trusted partner and force for peace and stability in the world. The GFA outlines peace building, strategy to stabilize conflict-affected areas and prevent violence and fragility. It emphasizes building relationship with local civil society by strengthening the capacity of the United States to be an effective leader of international efforts to prevent extremist and violent conflict. So you can look into it more, but essentially it's a tool to kind of push away Russia and China from having a sphere of influence close to in countries that are either useful to the United States or a neo-colony to the United States. So if by doing this Global Fragility Act really protects any type of relationship Haiti would have down the line in the future with China or Russia, for that matter. And with that way, they can kind of keep pushing their own interests in the country. And obviously, by doing so, in exchange, they're helping Haiti rebuild, promote democracy, and all that BS that they have to add in there to justify a neo-colonial rule / occupation. So I'll let you guys go into nitty-gritties of the Global Fragility Act, but it's a really good article as well. All right. Next, I wanted to take a look at is the protest in Peru. So Peru roadblocks resume as president urged peace, calm, and unity. So anti-government demonstrations and roadblocks have resumed in Peru after a 2-week pause as the South American nation continues to reel from last month's impeachment, arrest, and detention of former president Pedro Castro. Peruvian protesters on Wednesday used stones and burning tires to barricade the main routes in the southern region of Puno, Cusco, Apurimac, and Arequipa. I'm for sure butchering this, as well as Junin, a department in the center of the country. The crowd chants for the removal of President Dina Boluart, who took over on December 7th after the country's opposition held Congress overwhelmingly voted to remove Castillo. And just to get the point of that, I'll finish this paragraph and I'll get into it. Castillo, a former rural school teacher and union leader who took office in July 2021, was impeached after he tried to dissolve the legislators and rule by decree, a move widely condemned as an attempted coup. He was arrested shortly after impeachment vote and has been ordered to remain in pre-trial detention for 18 months on charges of rebellion and conspiracy, which Castillo denies. So if you guys don't know, Peru has had 6 presidents in the last 7 years, and Castillo, who was again had the popular vote, had won the elections, and even when he had won, within a month, Congress was already trying to remove him from his position. And keep in mind, the person that they have in power now, Dina Boluart, her dad was a former dictator back in the 90s, a far-right political party, but mainly a dictator her dad was in the past, which probably served the interest of the oligarchs of that country as well, or the international community for that matter. So even when he was in power, they had, from the jump, they had to try removing him from his position. For example, like 5 months in, they had argued that they had tried to impeach him. The Congress had tried to impeach him for illicit financing of his party, and it failed because they needed, they needed at least 2/3 of the votes, but 2/3 of the votes voted against impeachment for that reason. So they tried again for permanent moral incompetency as well. And then they've used that not for him, but also in the past for other presidents that were elected to try and remove him. And it failed again. And this one, particularly the permanent moral incompetency, since 2017, they've used that on a president in Congress 6 times since 2017 to try and remove them. Now, why would you try and remove someone like that? Well, he did have, based on his politics, he did have the interest of the rural communities in Peru, which was the majority of the populations, and he did have the popular vote as well. So after that, Castillo basically went. So he kept getting lawfare. So through obviously Peru's constitution and laws, they can try and find ways to remove him, even though they can't find anything on him. You can accuse someone for permanent incompetency, but then again, how would you essentially prove that? Like when you get to the details of it, but they're essentially conducting lawfare against him just to try and find anything to remove him from power, to the point where Castillo came out on a press conference and said, "Oh, well, Congress is against me. They've always been against me. They won't allow me to do anything." And then on state TV, I believe that it was the day or the next day, he announced that he's dissolving Congress. So the mainstream media might make it seem like he's dissolving Congress for his own personal gain or whatever, but that's the actual details of it. He's dissolving Congress essentially to have a new lawmakers and again to have new lawmakers that are less corrupt. Obviously, as you can see, they're trying to remove a democratically elected president. So his reasoning was to dissolve Congress, to have new lawmakers and redo the Constitution, which I'm assuming is trying to redo the Constitution. So stuff like this, and in terms of the power Congress holds in Peru, would not affect future presidents or himself while he served his term. So those are the details that are not being really presented by mainstream media. They make it seem that he tried to do a coup attempt, dissolved. It made him seem crazy in the sense he tried to dissolve Congress and give no context really on what's going on. So right now, like I said, he's arrested for rebellion, and basically he's arrested for funny because he's arrested for rebellion after that he announced that he wanted to dissolve Congress on state TV, and then Congress used that to impeach him. Essentially, they used the reasoning of him trying to dissolve Congress to impeach him, where 2/3 of Congress voted to have him impeached, and then that's when the new president got installed. And then this made me laugh. This is from December 10th, but Peru's president asked cabinet to take anti-corruption pledge. And then again, president, she has no legitimate power. She was kind of, like I said, kind of put in place by the elite and supported by elite and the international community, and put in place mainly with the power of Congress. But I'll read it to you here. Peru's newest president, Dina Boluart, swore into her cabinet on Saturday, just 3 days after becoming the country's first female head of state, and asked each minister to pledge not to be corrupt while in office. So I don't know how you expect. So they made a pledge to not be corrupt in office, yet her administration or her government do not hold legitimate power as of now. They haven't been even democratically elected. It's like similar to Richie Sunak in the UK, or in one of the main examples in Haiti with Ariel Henry. So the 17 ministers picked by Boluart, and keep in mind, she handpicked all these 17 ministers, who on Wednesday was elevated from vice president to replace the ousted Pedro Castillo as the country's leader, will be key to further inflaming or calming of South American country experiencing a seemingly endemic political crisis. So here, she asked each of the 9 men and 8 women to swear or promise to perform their duties loyally and faithfully without committing acts of corruption. Like, come on now. All cabinet members knelt before her and wore red and white sashes tied around their waist. A large crucifix was placed in front of most cabinet members when they responded to Boluart's questions. So, we'll see how that goes. Not to say it's her job to respond to it, because I doubt she would, but she has no media, mainstream media, or Peru is even asking her thoughts on Castillo being removed. But since it does her bidding, she probably won't. But we'll see how this continues to go. This is the Caribbean and Latin America struggle for freedom and less U.S. imperialism and neocolonialism. So we'll see how that goes. She's supposed to serve her full term, the full term that Castillo was supposed to serve, which was about Boluart has said she should be allowed to hold the office for the remaining 3.5 years of his term. But protesters are demanding new elections. Some of those demonstrating in favor of Castillo's have called her a traitor. So we'll see how it goes. It's something interesting we'll keep following here at the 1804. Please, when you do get the chance, please go follow at Twitter at the 1804. Subscribe as well. And thanks for joining me today, guys. Have a good day. Take care.